Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pass the Noise, where we have discussions, open forum discussions about a variety of topics. We don't preset topics necessarily per se, long in advance, but come with topics, and then we come on. We just have an open forum discussion. You're invited to join. You can make comments in the comments or questions or whatever you want in the comments. I'll be throwing in a call-in link in the comment section soon, so you can come on and talk to us if you choose to do it that way. And always remember that listen, you can hit us up on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram or Twitter. And if there's a topic that you would like to have us cover, you would like to have us talk about, hit us up, let us know, and we'll put it in and see if we can make that happen. So thanks for watching. I am your co-host, Elder Michael Hightower, joined as always by Apostle T.B. Walker. Apostle,
Hola.
how you doing this evening? Yeah.
I am fantastic.
Yeah. So this Saturday is the big day. This is your day, your road to the Oscar.
Yes.
So,
My debut, my grand debut.
So this is the debut. So how have you guys were in rehearsals and whatnot? How have the rehearsals been going?
Rehearsals have been going really, really well. I mean, it's great. Things are, everything's gelling, everything's coming together. And I think it's just, the play is going to be fantastic. Fantastic. The Omar Rashada is the writer of the play. And, he's put together a really, really good story, a great tapestry of, what looks like, I think what our community looks like. And so I think, for anybody who's going to come, I think there's going to be a roller coaster of emotions, a wide range of characters that somebody's going to be in touch with one of those characters. And there'll be somebody you say, I know that person. So yeah, it's been really, really good to see people kind of transform and become their individual characters.
Oh man, that does sound kind of cool, kind of interesting to be a part of that sort of dynamic. Because it is kind of dynamic, right? You sort of, no one knows for sure how it's going to all come together when you start, and then as you rehearse and whatnot, it sort of comes together maybe in ways that are even different than what was planned out. But man, that's awesome. So it's this Saturday. Yeah, so it's this Saturday, 7:00. Where's it again?
It is in Wilmington, Delaware. It's at the Wilmington Music School. That's at 4101 Washington Street in Wilmington, Delaware. Now, you can always, you can buy tickets at the door. The tickets are $30, but people can also reach out to, I believe it's Omar Rashada at yahoo.com, and you can reserve tickets. So ticket sales have been going really well. And, we're just expecting, we're just expecting a really, really great interaction with the crowd and really just having a great time. Did that sound like an actor there?
You did. And
maybe I should have done this. One of those. It's broken as we speak. Yeah, maybe I should have done one of those.
Yeah. No, man, that's I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be there. So I'm looking forward to it. It's an awesome thing. So, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So just jumping right into our topics for the evening. Our first topic, we'll see how many we get to, or the ones we sort of lined up. Ukraine aid to Ukraine from the U.S., from other countries. It's become something of a hot topic. I think partly because this war has dragged on longer than people thought. People thought that Russia was going to just run them over and then we'll rebuild Ukraine and move on from there. But it's been almost a year, and we are really not that close to a resolution. This is a short clip. I'm just going to play this short clip, and I want to get right into my main take on this whole with Ukraine.
Gentlelady from Georgia is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. I rise in opposition to the Ukrainian supplemental bill, $40 billion, but there's no baby formula for American mothers and babies. An unknown amount of money to the CIA in the Ukraine supplemental bill, but there's no formula for American babies and mothers. $54 million in COVID spending in Ukraine, but there's no formula for American babies and mothers.
So she goes on for a while longer, but you kind of get the gist of where she is.
No money for babies, right?
Yeah, no for baby. Now she is not wrong about sort of the supply chain issues we're still having. I was at the store earlier today a lot of empty shelves. So I mean,
Right.
and when I say empty shelves, I'm talking about these are first world problems. Like we're not missing the essentials. Like there's no Gatorade or there's no the crackers.
Right.
So it's that kind of stuff. And I know that there was the baby shortage issue before, but that's still a first world problem. That's different than
Sure.
I don't have anything to feed my baby. So but she's not wrong about some of that, and just about the money that's spent. Now with this bill she's talking about, the 45 billion, that took American aid to over $100 billion to Ukraine since this war started. That I mean that's a lot of money no matter who's doing the counting. That is just a ton of money.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and so I think that by my main take when I was watching this and listening to this is, first of all, it's clear now, right, that this war cannot be won in a traditional sense. And I think part of that is just modern warfare. In modern warfare, this country and this country are fighting. You have all these actors behind the scenes. So essentially, the U.S. is fighting a proxy war with Russia, right? Rather
Sure.
than doing it, we're sort of fighting a proxy war. So what you have is really absent some kind of negotiated peace settlement. This really could go on forever as we continue to provide aid to Ukraine and other countries provide aid to Russia.
Right.
How are you going to win? I mean, even if Ukraine manages to push Russia all the way out of Ukraine, they'll be back again. They'll regroup.
Right.
Back. So there's no warfare settlement to this war, so to speak. And so, should we be writing blank checks for wars in foreign countries? I think I say no. I mean, this could easily last, like other conflicts we've seen, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. Should we foot the bill for the whole thing? I mean, as of right now, the $100 billion that the U.S. has provided exceeds all the other monies that given from other countries combined. So we've given more than everyone else combined, and that $100 billion. So yeah, foreign aid in general is not as simple. It's not always a simple yes or no, up or down,
right,
thing, because it's a lot of complexities there. Right now that you're kind of in it, now do you pull out now, like we did, like say in Afghanistan, and the minute we leave, the Taliban is right there behind us. I mean, it's sort of when you're dealing in foreign environments, there are a lot of things to take into account. So I'm not saying to cut off the aid. I'm not. That's what I'm saying. And all the aid was not necessarily guns and bullets, right? Some of it was humanitarian aid, helping people. I think it was been 8 million or so Ukrainians displaced. So some of that was money for that, but it's still, in a sense, our money going there for that. And we do have issues in this country to address that could use a couple bucks, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, listen, you know what? When you look at the world, I mean, there's, it's kind of like the little Dutch boy putting the fingers in the dike, right? And as you put your finger in one hole, one area of the dike, there's always going to be another, spouting point that's going to be there. So the question is going to be, I think, with all policy, is which hole do you fill? I think it's with all the things that are there, I think we've got to look at this and ask ourselves, well, why is this such an important hole to fill? And I mean, why is this one so important? And I think in some ways part of this is a NATO created problem. This is an us, if you will, an us created problem.
Absolutely.
We're on the border of Russia, as we said we would not. We've broken all those promises, and then now we're footing the bill at basically paying the cost for this whole war, when we do have, for instance, problems at our own border, that we're fighting to make sure the borders of Ukraine are secure against Russia, but we don't have any money to make sure the borders in America is secure. And again, as much as I hate to harken back to old, Donald Trump, I have to admit that I think that we're beginning to see, and I kind of said this, I was thinking this beforehand, that, we're going to really, in some ways, we're going to miss the strong man, because it's exactly what we need right now. The truth of the matter is, we need someone who's able to say, no, you know what? I mean, we can't fix everything. And some things in this world are going to be unfixed. Now, I wonder why this is so important and not another area of the world. You know, this area in Europe seems to be so important, and it's a money pit. But there are other areas of the world that we could certainly shore up that would have a much more greater certainty than we have here. But there's something about the Ukrainians and Europe here that I think is a sticking point. It's an old world thinking, I believe, that's kind of a throwback to the old days.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, part of it is, to your point, I think it's an old world sort of the way we see Europe in general, and that part of the eastern part of Europe.
Right.
And the way the old Soviet Union, those countries and all that kind of stuff. But also, I think it's part of like we saw a chance to sort of get at Russia, and it's like we can get them in Ukraine. Let's do it. We're weakening them and all these other justifications for the war. It may be true. I mean, you may be weakening them and all that kind of stuff, but you're not taking them out. I mean, they have support from other countries that's going to be able to shore them up. And the irony is, we're sending the more aid we give, the longer we're guaranteeing that the war is going to last, and more stuff is going to be broken, and more people are going to die. There's already been, let me make sure I have these numbers. Civilian casualties in Ukraine are 12,000 plus, 7,000 killed, 12,000 plus wounded. 23,000 soldiers plus killed, 30,000 wounded. Russia has 30-something thousand plus casualties, killed and wounded. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of infrastructure destroyed. Now somebody's going to have to rebuild it. And I think to your earlier point, the bill's going to come to the U.S. They're going to say, you guys got to help us replace all these buildings that have been destroyed. And you got to rebuild the economy because you've lost like 8 million people have left.
Right.
They may or may not come back. Some of them will come back, but all 8 million are not coming back. And so you've lost that part of your economy. So you have to build the economy back up. While you're building the economy back up, you're going to have to support them economically.
Right.
Why they don't have it. So this is a long-term.
It's a money pit.
Yeah, it's a long-term, large. It's not an investment. I've heard people talk about it
as an investment.
But it's really not. It's really
not
an investment.
No.
I mean, because first of all, you don't know the extent of the bill. Like if you invest in something, I'll spend $100 on this. I'll buy 5 shares of IBM or whatever.
Right.
Like this is a blank check. We don't know how long this is going to last right now. Like I said, right now, what you have is basically a stalemate in a sense. Russia takes some ground, and Ukraine take it back, and then Russia take it back.
Right.
And they're going to keep doing this, playing this, it's not a game, but they're going to keep doing this back and forth indeterminately, right? Because again, I don't see any way militarily, Russia's clearly, right? It's clear as obvious as day now. They are not going to be able to take over Ukraine. And it's obvious why Ukraine can push them out or push them out of certain parts. They can't keep those things on forever. Like this can't keep going on. Well, it can, but I'm saying the forever is tied to dollars and their ability to get more weapons and other things. But I think the responsibility to rebuild is going to fall on us. It's going to fall on the American taxpayer. And to that end, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene was right. Like, why are we doing? Where is the stopping point? Where is we'll spend this much and then we don't have any more? Like we have people in America that don't have air conditioning. That but we got $100 billion to send to Ukraine. I mean,
can't fix the water problem in Flint. Can't fix the water problem down in Jackson, Mississippi. We can't stop the border issues, but we've got billions and billions of dollars to send to Ukraine, and a Ukraine that I think that people forget has had its own share of corruption that is not the best on the books. Country. We've had some issues here. So I think in a lot of ways, with all that's been going on with Ukraine historically, Ukraine historically has its own issues. It's got its own very, very dark past. And I think in some ways, because it's Europe and because of our mindset of anything anti-Russian, we forget, the true picture of Ukraine and Ukrainian politics, which has been rife with corruption. So this is not a country that you looked at the books and said, oh yeah, this is a good bet. No, this is just, you're fighting against our arch enemy. Yeah. So yeah, you somehow, once you fight against Lex Luthor, does that instantly make you like Superman? So I think that's one of those things that we are almost victims of our own propaganda, where we have, as Zelensky kind of, struts in with his khaki shirt on and, looking like, he just came out to fight. we have kind of bought into that. It's like, yeah, we got to
Yeah.
support this guy. I mean, look at him. He looks like he just came off the front line. And
Mm-hmm.
and oddly enough, that propaganda that, was used over there has worked, where he can actually sit and demand, that, I'm going to demand this money. Thank you for what you've done, but you got to do more, as
Mhm.
if it's our war.
Right.
That's where, for me, that, I mean, if there's any, if there's any animus that's there at all, it's that.
Mhm.
It is that this isn't a guy who's asking America for help. He's gotten to the point where I think that he's kind of chiding in America. And, thanks for the help. Let me make sure I tell you that I do appreciate your help. But, put your hand out, because I got to smack you a little bit, because, what is it, 40 million? That's $40 billion? Chump change. We need more than that. I think that's where America is
Yeah.
being hijacked.
Definitely, yeah, for sure. It's being high because now it's like an obligation. I think we don't have any obligation to help them with their war. But I mean, you think back to when the war started, and or prior to the war, Russia was amassing troops and equipment at the border, and people were like, "Yeah, they're not going to invade. They're not going to invade." But the United States was saying, "No, we have intelligence that he is going to invade." That might have
Right.
been a good time to jump in and say, no, we're not going to allow this, or that's the time, right? Preventative rather than
Right.
now we need to rebuild the whole thing, rather than saying, this happens and we're going to step in. We're going to step in a big way. But not doing that, you essentially let him go in and wreck the country.
Right. Absolutely. And then and then pick up the tab.
And then we're picking up the tab.
Picking up the tab.
Picking up
Here's
the tab
what we
and
did, we wrecked the country. We'll pay for that. We got to kick you out of there too. We'll pay for that. And then after you finish destroying and all the fighting's over, who's going to pay for that? We're going to pay for that. I mean, poor Ukrainians are, displaced. We got to pay for that. But we have Americans that are like living on the street now. We can't stand the idea of a Ukrainian winter and a poor Ukrainian being in the cold. We can't stand it.
Mhm.
As we're stepping over people in Philadelphia and New York and in LA, as we're going down Skid Row, we can stand it. It's weird that we can stand it in American cities. We can handle it.
Yeah.
And as cold as it is, we can look and say, oh man, that's bad. But when it comes to Ukraine, we go into our pockets. I think that America is off the rails.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, I mean, you and I both lived long enough to know when you look at the thermometer and you see the temperature's gone to a certain point, for sure people are going to die. Whether it's too cold or too hot, people are going to die because they don't have heat or they don't have air conditioning or some combination of something. But we know that when temperatures rise, and we really don't do anything about it. I mean, not really anything super impactful. But to your point, we live with that though. We live with that. It's going to be cold in Chicago, so people are going to die in their apartments.
Horrible blizzard in Buffalo, right? People die.
Yeah. But we take that and we're like, yeah. But the idea of to your point, people in a foreign country, like it's not lack of compassion. It's like, how are we fixing their problems
right
when we haven't fixed our problems? Like, how are we solving their their issues?
Right.
And we got a few issues over here that could use a few dollars. So where's that money? And also, I mean, if you're going to be doing the foreign aid thing, that's not the only place where we have armed conflicts.
Right.
You have armed conflicts all over the place. Somalia, Yemen, Syria. Just to name a few, I could probably, it's probably like 24 places all over the globe where they have armed conflict where it's not on TV here. You're not getting updates.
Right.
The leaders from those countries are not addressing Congress. We're not writing a check to them for their refugees and stuff. So it's a different dynamic when it's in this part of the world versus this other part of the world. And there's something about that also rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, I was looking at something the other day and it was talking about Yemen and talking about how it is probably today the world's largest humanitarian crisis. Now, again, I didn't know much about it. This was something I found on YouTube. But there's a reason why I didn't know. Now, I know what's going on in Ukraine, though.
Exactly.
Right. I know exactly what's going on there. I know what they're facing this horrible winter and all of those things that are there. But the largest humanitarian crisis, we simply can't figure out what's going on in Palestine. We've got these, people who are in basically refugee status for now 50, 60 years. and we can't figure that out. But
Right.
somehow we got this Ukrainian thing. Man, I mean, is there any money to throw toward, toward Palestine? Is there any money to throw
Right,
toward
no.
Yemen? Now
Mhm.
we can't, we don't have any money for that. But something about Ukraine, and I wonder what that is. And I think that has a lot to do with our view of Europe over the rest of the world. We have made a connection. We are not the policemen of the world, and that's what we've looked at ourselves. America's not the police of the world. We've not been the police of the world. We've really been the police for Europe. We've not really policed the world. We've thrown some crumbs to the world, but we've not fought. We've had blue hats or blue helmets over in different places who've had instructions. We're peacekeepers. We don't fight. So the Rwanda thing can actually happen right we're here. Yeah, you can kill them in the Congo right while we're here. So you can see it like right while we're here in the Middle East. You can actually see that. But it's something about Europe. And I think that really comes from, there's a certain hint of racism that's really connected in our policy, that it's not a real worldwide policy. It's very specific to actors that we think are more important than others. Haiti's right here in our hemisphere. We are watching it. We're watching poverty. We're watching a country collapse. But does it matter? Are we looking and saying, gotta get some Haitians over here? No, we don't want Haitians over here. But somehow we can fly over Haiti to look and say, now where are you located? Because you moved, but we can find you. You're in Dagestan. Somehow we have mechanisms for displaced people to be found in Lithuania. I can find you in Estonia, but somehow as we fly over Haiti, there's just no place for the poor Haitian. There's no room. There's room for the Cuban. There's no room for the Haitian. There's a certain amount of racism that I think is underlying the policy in America, and I think that some of this money kind of shows where our heart really is.
Yeah, I think it's where you identify, right? It's where we identify with that part of the world, whether it's Eastern Europe or Central Europe or wherever you are. We identify with Europe, and there's a sense of kindred spirits and all that kind of stuff. And I think we see ourselves as either part of that, part of the world historically, or because so many people from that part of the world are here.
The alliance,
the alliances, and so I think that where you see yourself is where you're going to be more animated. Like I see myself over there, so that I don't have any problem sending money to myself. But those black and brown people, you don't identify with them, and so they're animals, they're savages. That's the thing.
And we have alliances, though.
Yeah,
we've got alliances. We have the same alliances, but not the same allegiance. Same alliances, but not the same investment.
It's nowhere near the same investment. It's nowhere near. And right now, I mean, for me, if there's a way to end this war, the U.S. should do it. Like if there's a way to diplomatically end this, they should do it rather than just writing the endless checks. I mean, it's one or the other. Like I said, this really is a stalemate, and sending more aid is just prolonging the war. It's guaranteeing it's going to continue because Ukraine has no motivation right now to really give up.
Right.
Why would they give up now? They've got the US on the hook. They got a pipeline directly into our treasury. Why would they say, forget about it. We're good. They're like, no, they're not going to. Why would they do that? They're fighting a war with other people's money. So, no, they're not going to do it.
Absolutely.
They're not going to do it.
How can they? I mean, do you see an end to the war? Do you see a way that this war will end?
I don't know. I don't see it right now. I do not see it. I don't know how you would broker a peace deal between these two countries. Russia has made it clear why they invaded. You can agree or disagree with their rationale, or whatever. But the rationale that they've given says to me that no, they won't just go away and say, you know what? Never mind. We only lost 30,000 soldiers. We're good. We'll just pack up and go away. No. And I think part of it is, even though we identify with Europe and that part of the world, we still don't think like people in other parts of the world think. And we try to transplant American thinking. Say, why would anybody do this? And I don't understand why they would do that. But I mean, it's an authoritarian government. What they do is the decision of one person. That's why they do what they do. So it's like we don't sort of fully wrap our hands around that and sort of understand that that's what that part of the world is. And to your earlier point, Ukraine has had some of the exact same issues in terms of the way that they treated their people,
Yes,
and in the government, and where did the money go, and how come people are starving on the street. They've had some of the same issues
absolutely.
that we would point at Russia and say, they're in China. Like,
Exactly the
you
same.
guys are bad guys. They're the good guys in this war because we think of Russia as worse than Ukraine, right?
Right.
Traditionally, we think of, Ukraine might have some issues, but nothing like Russia. And so
Right.
you have this balance, this equivalence thing that's false that we use to say, we'll help this one, but not that one.
It's like, I mean, it's either the Joker or the Penguin, right? They're both. which side are you going to be on? It's like it's a basketball pickup game. You have left is just the Joker or the Penguin, right? Which one do you pick? They both have killed people. They
Right.
both are corrupt. It's just that the Penguin probably is a little bit more organized than the Joker, right? So you pick the least the least of the I guess the best of the worst.
He's less crazy, I guess. He's
less crazy.
Psychotic, I guess you'd
Yes.
say. He can be reasoned with to a certain
Yes,
degree.
there are times that the Joker can be reasoned with, and he'll leave if the thing gets bad enough. The Joker jumps on this little thing and he flies away, whereas the Penguin is always coming back. So which one is worse? There's going to be an episode where the Joker is still going to be the Joker. There's still going to be another episode where they've not changed. And in truth, Ukraine has only shown a desire to be a part of the a greater part of Europe, but it hasn't actually shown a desire to actually reverse all of its authoritarian ways. Some of the corruption that is natural, that's been a part, because it comes from that same region. It's been used for many, many years by Russia for some of its strong arm tactics. So that's been a home in some places and for some of Russia's military. So the mindset isn't such that it's like, oh, they've changed all of a sudden. The issue with Joe Biden, and coming in with his son and the corruption that was there. It's easy to kind of sweep under the rug, but that was like very recent corruption that we know was really going on. Now, whether Joe was involved, that's a different thing. Whether his son was involved, that's a different thing. But we do know that there was a corruption trial and a corruption case going on very recently. So I'm not sure if we're just, we're not being bamboozled by our own propaganda.
Yes.
Yes. Drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, and I think it's foolish to think that once, let's just say it ends, 6 months from now, they broker a peace deal somehow, it ends. I don't know why we think that the Ukraine you get then will be different than the Ukraine you got pre-war. Like, what would be their motive to do things differently? They're not all of a sudden going to be like a democracy,
right?
Or all of a sudden, we need 2 houses of Congress. They're not going to do that. They're going to go back to the thing that they're used to doing, the thing that they're comfortable with, and the thing that works for those that are in power. I mean, those that are in power, unless you give them an incentive to not do those things, they're going to continue to do the things that keep them in power and keep them comfortable. You see the same dynamic in all these types of countries where the people at the top live great, and you got all these poor people below them, and somehow these countries make, they have all this money, but nobody knows where the money went. Confusion about this and that, and you're going to go back to the same thing.
Yeah, Ukraine has oligarchs. I mean, we're just not showcasing the Ukrainian oligarchs. We're just not showcasing them, but they've got oligarchs in the very same way. They've got a system that's very, very similar to Russia, to the Russian system. A pipeline, an easy pipeline to the president based upon your position in the country. That was there beforehand. So we just bought that Zelensky is somehow the new age guy because he doesn't come with the Kremlin suit. He comes with got the tight short sleeve shirt. So we kind of bought it's like, oh man, that's Calvin Klein. That's a little different. When in reality, in a lot of ways, this is really Putin light, whether people want to believe it or not.
And listen, Zelensky is good at what he does. The way he presents himself, the way he talks, the things he talks about, the way he frames his country's position relative to Russia, he's understood from this is what it's all about. Like, I don't have to change anything that I'm doing. I just have to position us in opposition to them and say,
Right.
hey, look at these guys. You know, we're the little guy, they're the big guy. They're beating us up. Just come and help us. And he's played it to the hilt. And in terms of that, you got to be impressed with the way that he presented himself, even in Congress. Like, thank you, like you said, thank you, but
Yeah, right.
you know,
And at the end of getting smacked across the cheek, here's
Right.
what America did. Oh, Zelensky, you're so great. How
Yeah.
much you need? I mean, they got to smack a rap across the chops and just never heard it. Never heard him dissing. Never heard him absolutely disrespectful, needing us, but made us feel like we needed to invest in him.
right.
There's something to be said for that.
Yeah, something of a guilt trip. Sort of like, if you don't do this, bad things are going to happen. Well, bad things have already happened. Like, again, we helped expand NATO into places we said NATO would not go.
Right.
Then we did not give assurances to Putin that NATO wouldn't be in Ukraine. Again, it's not justifying anything that he did, but those are facts. I mean, those are real life facts. So if you look at it from his point of view, not justifying it, but you can see where he would look out and see NATO all over the place. And like, this is not what we agreed to. This was not our agreement. So it's definitely problematic. And I was watching debate in Congress about the Ukraine aid features in that. Not part of that clip. That clip was part of the discussion, and people were saying, no, we can't have oversight because it's a war. I mean, it's a wartime now. Are you saying you want to cancel the aid? Because I mean, like, how is that the standard? Like, what's a war? So we can't do anything. It's a war, so just keep
funnel the money in.
What? Like, you got to do your job. And I think some of the people in Congress were saying, we still have to do our jobs, which is
right.
Where's the money going? What is it being used for? Is it being used properly? If we're going to send it, it can't be a free for all. But
right.
I mean, that's just what it is. So, so we'll see. I mean, I don't see a short end to this. I don't see it ending anytime soon. I don't know how it would. But again, this is one more thing. We'll wait and see, how this plays out. But yeah, so not looking forward to it, but we'll see where we are in 6 months or toward the end of this year. So moving on, you can move on to our next topic, which is Congressman-elect George Santos. Santos is from New York, accused of embellishing his resume, and he apparently did so in particular faction. So I guess they're saying go big or go home. Mr. Santos, we're number one, and said, if I'm going to do this, let me just go ahead and go all out. Let's watch a clip, and then we'll talk about Mr. Santos.
So my one question is, how did this happen? How did this happen?
We're all used to seeing public officials who shade the truth, lie, and so forth and so on. This is a whole other dimension. This is a different order of magnitude where he invented almost every single thing about it. I mean, from his name to his, like almost everything, his work life, his education life, his mother's life, his grandparents' life, his immigrant story, on and on and on, all just completely invented. And so it's a little bit unusual to run into somebody like that. And we don't have a system, even the informal parts of our system, media vetting, opposition research, party mechanisms and so forth. We don't really have great mechanisms for trapping or catching something like this because it doesn't happen very often.
Maggie, this culture of lying, like, is this something, obviously it's something that Trump normalized, right? Because you just say what you want, lie about whatever, and just double, triple, quadruple down and just refuse to back down. It may work for a lot of people, usually just worked for Trump. You think it's going to work for George Santos?
Oh, he's going to be seated, and I think that then we're going to see what happens with these investigations.
Yeah, he pretty much fabricated a bio from out of whole cloth. So that's kind of what happened there. But my main take is there's too much being made about the scope. right? It's so many lies, and we've never seen anything like this before, and it's unprecedented and all this stuff.
Right.
It's really not. I mean, lying. I mean, Watergate, the government giving people syphilis, not telling them. I mean, we can go through a list of things that the government has lied about
Sure.
to the American people's faces. And so as soon as we get caught up in it, well, it's 10 lies instead of one. Why? To me, that's irrelevant, right? The first time you lie about who you are, then I can't really trust anything you say anyway. So whether it's 1 or 10, really is kind of irrelevant. But what's interesting is part of what they're saying is there's still an acceptable level of lying, right? Yeah, you can get away with it. I went to Harvard, but I didn't graduate, but I still put on my resume. You can get away with that. You can lie about your military service. You can lie about other stuff, but there's a line in which you've told one too many lies, and then we're going to get you. I'm like, that's the reason people lie in the first place. So the idea that I don't understand why anyone would do this, like, why wouldn't they do it?
Right.
Given our sort of affinity for letting people get away with lying, and kind of like those lying, so and so.
Right.
I mean, so again, what's the disincentive to lie? To not to lie, to tell the truth?
I don't think that there is a. I don't think that the political world is looking for an incentive for truth. I don't think that the political world is looking for an incentive for integrity. I think that what you find in the political world is that integrity, honesty, and values are redefined for us. Donald Trump didn't redefine it. He just simply illustrated what the redefinition actually looks like. We saw it, on Wall Street, right?
Mm-hmm.
Greed is good, right? Isn't that
Yeah.
Gordon Gekko? Remember that line where he said greed is good? And you know what? I remember, I was in sales at that time, and I remember, looking at that and kind of thinking like being a shark, and being cutthroat, and like, man, that's the way to do it. And it kind of liberated people, when we were looking at the way to do a deal. And I remember getting my, Series 7 licenses at the time. And I remember thinking a way to do a deal, way to do mortgages. If you're going to sell financial products, the way to do it. It kind of opened the door and kind of made you think, and it almost validated that some of the natural urges that law would tamp down, actually it redefined greed. It said greed is good. So the politicians have been lying for a long period of time. We now just have a redefinition of what a lie is. Some of that is not a lie. Some of that's just natural politics. And I think that's what, that's unfortunately what was actually, I think, being said, is that we all know that lying is a part of politics. We're not even looking for integrity. We're not looking for 100%. If you eat a hot dog, we realize that there's a certain percentage of human hair and rat feces that's allowed in the right. I mean, as crazy as that is, there is a small percentage that the FDA will allow to go through, right? And still say that's 100% beef, right? We'll still put the label on it.
Yeah,
no
absolutely.
Preservatives other than the 2%, rat feces over here. But other than that, nothing to preserve it.
Right.
We've kind of got used to a little bit of crap in our food. Why not a little bit of crap in our politics? Now, if you had 10% rat feces, then that's when people say, we expected some.
Right.
Now, that's outrageous. That's what he did.
Right.
He smeared it on the page for us to actually see. And now we got to see. But it didn't matter because he still got seated. The testimony was, so what? Right. The real story is that lies don't matter. We're not there anymore. That's old days.
Yeah.
That's old days.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is the qualifications to serve in Congress are very minimal.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to be 25 years of age. You have to be a U.S. citizen for 7 years. And you have to live in the district that you represent.
Right.
That's it.
That's it. You
don't have to have graduated from anything. You have to have attended kindergarten. There's no other reason. You have to be a lawyer. Nothing. Those are the only qualifications. So in a way, it's funny that somebody would lie about a job in which there are no qualifications.
Right.
And frankly, you would get more vetting if you applied at a fast food restaurant for a job.
And you better believe it.
Better background check on you than Congress does. Now, the truth is, the reason why there's no mechanism for vetting congressional candidates is that's because that's the way politicians want it.
That's
They
right.
want to put a system in place of just basic background checks. This is your real name. This is where you live. This is your educational background. This is basic stuff, like 5-point background check.
Right.
They could do it if they wanted to. They don't want to. It's not. It's not.
But, I mean, the FBI is doing it every day, right?
Every day.
At NASA, they're doing it. They're doing it all the time. They're
a company.
MIT. I mean, they're getting it right now. Right now. And there are people right now that are going that are going to work for Target, that are having to put their thumb down because that company may require fingerprints,
drug test,
absolutely,
all kinds of stuff. Background check, criminal background check. You ever been arrested or anything? I mean, do you use drugs? I mean, everything. Like, this is for a job as a sales clerk, and we're sending people to Congress with no vetting. I just assumed nobody would do that. Why would somebody lie about it? I think that's where we are as a country, in a place where people just say, I'm just going to assume that no one would do that because I wouldn't do it. Perhaps I know I would do that. Who would lie?
But let's face it, isn't that how we look at Congress, politicians? Because if we look at the rest of the world, right? If a guy sings, if you sing a song that you didn't write, somehow somebody's able to find out that you didn't write that, right? 100%. I mean, bloggers, they're everywhere 100%. Finding out. Oh yeah, you said that you were with this company, but you really weren't. You said that you said you did 2 years in jail, and you know what? We found out you didn't. So all of those things. How are we able to find out these things about pop culture? How are we able to go back to somebody's rap sheet and get things that were sealed? It's like, oh no, he's a snitch because we've got the receipts. Now, how are we able? Well, I'll tell you what, we care more.
Yep.
The world, our minds, we care more about what's going on in that area of culture than than the area of where our rulership comes from, where our guidance and our leadership comes from. We've abandoned our care, which is why we can look at this and Donald Trump can say, "Hey, look, I didn't pay taxes. Does that make it illegal? Is that illegal? No, I think that makes me smart." And once people look and say, he has a point. We're done. We're in the toboggan already, just sliding down the hill. We've already just jumped on, and we're now sliding down the hill. And I think from that point, we're really now on that slippery slope down where integrity is now redefined and who got hurt. Not whether you told a lie. Who got hurt by me telling the lies about my grandparents? Huh? Who got hurt by me saying I used to work for Goldman Sachs or a Citigroup? Well, who got hurt? Right? No, nobody got hurt from that. And people look and say, "You're right. It doesn't affect my pocket. I don't care." That's where I think that's where we are.
And especially if you're not from New York, if you're living in Idaho, you're like, whatever, let them. I don't care what the congressman from New York did to get elected. He did his thing, whatever. So the end is back to the ends justified. At the end, he got elected. So the ends justify the means. Now he's having to go on a policy tour, and whatnot. But other than that, I mean, it's like I'm doing it as a member of Congress. So he got what he was looking for, and I'm really sick of the idea of using Trump as some kind of like he shifted something or he was like some kind of catalyst. He wasn't a catalyst. He was just a reflection of this is who you.
Yes.
Hey, this is who we are. This is who we are. And he's more like an avatar for this is what we are as a country.
Right.
He's not the developer of the game. He's just a player. He's just playing.
Absolutely.
He's just playing the game.
He's the poster. He's the kid they put on the poster.
Absolutely.
He didn't create basketball. He didn't create it. He's just the guy with the picture of the jump shot. So he looks like he's just a poster child for where we are. He's a poster child for what our thinking really was. And which is, again, it wasn't Donald Trump. It was the fact that we elected him. It wasn't Donald Trump. It's the fact that he told us outright who he was. Right. And we said, okay. But all the things were there long before him. And you notice that since he's not even here, the slide has continued.
Big time.
We didn't turn around. It's like, well, Trump's gone now, so America is back to its old great ways. No, we're sliding further because the culture is going downhill, and Joe Biden was never strong enough to stop the slide. He was getting in front of a Big Mac truck on an ice hill, and somehow we looked and said, "Come on, Sleepy Joe, get in front of this truck and stop it for us." No way. Or should I say President Sleepy Joe to be disrespectful?
President Sleepy Joe, Mr. President Sleepy Joe. Yeah, and I think it's more than just disingenuous. I think it's a bit dangerous because it's sort of like it allows people to put the blame. It's his fault. If it wasn't for him, we would just be more honest as a country. If it wasn't for him, our politics wouldn't be so convoluted. If it wasn't for Trump, everything would be like roses and like. Was Trump around during Watergate? I mean, was he responsible for that, for the break-in? Was he responsible for all the other Ryan Contra and all the other government scandals that happened since we had a government till now? Like he wasn't responsible for that. Like you said, he just simply hopped on the train that was already moving and said, let me steer for a minute. But other than that, he didn't do anything. And he gets way too much credit for that. And it's just way too convenient and way too easy to blame him rather than blaming ourselves and saying, why is it we don't want congressional candidates vetted? Are we just too lazy? And the answer is, yeah, we're too lazy. We're too lazy to say, we want all 435 members of this body, we want them vetted.
For honesty, right? For honesty. You're not increasing. You're not saying, well, listen, we want to change the requirements, right? It's just that I want what you said you did to be vetted to make sure you said you did. You didn't have to go to Harvard, right? But if you said you went to Harvard,
right?
Because you could have gone to clown college and you still would have qualified, right?
Still qualified.
But since you said that you graduated from bartenders college, then okay, that needs to be true.
Absolutely. And if it's not true, there should be real consequences. Like that should be disqualifying. It's not in any way, shape, form, or fashion disqualifying. Look, if you apply for a job, an accountant at Deloitte, and you put on your resume you graduated from Texas Tech, and you actually graduated from UCLA, that's still a fireable offense.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
if you put your resume and say, "Wait a minute, I thought you said you went to Texas Tech," they would have grounds to fire you.
Absolutely.
And yet you can make up everything about your resume as a member of someone's running for Congress, name, family, everything. And at the end, people just shrug and say, you know what, we don't have a method for vetting, as if it's beyond our ability to vet people when people are vetted every day for jobs that don't require this level of public trust. This is the position of public trust, and yet we don't make sure that the people who are occupying it are actually trustworthy. It's just like, what do you want us to do? But they don't. No, they won't do it for themselves because they don't want the scrutiny on themselves. Like they're not going to drop it down and say, "Yeah, it's a good idea. Let's pass a thing that says all members of Congress have to be vetted." They're not going to do that unless it's foisted upon them. It's never going to happen. And
well, I mean, we'd be crazy to think that they would, though.
Absolutely, I'm not expecting it.
Us.
Absolutely, we would.
There's moments right now where there could be an outcry. Right. Mm-hmm. This is a moment where this is that Frankenstein moment where the whole crowd comes out and they've got the pitchforks out and they're finally going to Frankenstein's castle saying, no, we want the monster, right? They could. And if America ever got there, that'd be different. This is an indictment against America, not against Santos. The scripture talks about the fact that, in the last days that people were going to heap to themselves teachers because they're itching ears. Now, do we look at the teachers? Is that that scripture? Is that scripture really talking about and here's how bad the teachers are going to be? Or is it really about the people are going to willingly be bamboozled and they're going to find people that they like, whether they have integrity or not? The fact that he can be seated, the fact that there's no major outcry in New York. This is not, this is not like a pulling out your hair story. This is a major story that will get buried. Like it's, under other things in a few days, just like I think it was Maggie Haberman was like, well, he'll be seated. We'll see what happens.
Right.
What are you going to do? We'll see what happens after that.
There's no way to get rid of him. I mean, but maybe they'll deny him committee assignments and just, I guess, make his job boring, but he's still going to be sitting in Congress. Like
he's absolutely
all you've done is make his job easier. So he doesn't do anything, just show up in his office and sit in his office all day. No committee assignments, no work. I mean, how is that a punishment?
If you were, third grade, Or if you wanted to be the manager for, for the basketball team and you couldn't carry the balls. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the indictment, he's still going to get that. He's still going to get that salary, right? He's still going to be in a position to still make decisions. He's
still going to vote.
But is there an outcry in New York? With all this out there, is there a huge swell?
No.
An outcry. I remember there's a guy who sent some lewd pictures. There was a bigger outcry about the pictures than this.
Anthony Weiner.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember. Yeah, and he was basically running the town, pretty much.
He was the man. I mean, but initially he was a man, right? And then they ran him out of town. Then it was like, okay, so you know what? We've come to our senses. We're going to run this guy out of town. And that only came after I think he did it again.
He did it again, and it was something even crazier. That was the only thing. I mean, the thing is, he went again.
He did it again.
That last step. There's just one step too far.
But remember, initially, he was a man.
Right.
This is where we are.
Yeah.
We integrity is a bad word. Those guys are corny. The truth of the matter is we like these guys because in some ways they're like us. We like Trump because it was like locker room talk, right? And in some ways it wasn't like he started locker room talk. It was that he validated it for us. We like that. We've been doing it.
Made it cool.
Anthony has been sending pictures. He wasn't the first one. These are other guys who said, finally, somebody who's like us. And now the guy who lies on his resume. Listen, how many people have embellished their resume? Put an engineer at the end. I mean, how many guys were custodial engineers? I'm not using janitor. I'm going to put custodial engineer, right? So that became natural for us, right? So finally, someone who comes. How many people have lied on their resume? How many people have gone to a company and added an extra year,
right,
from here to here? Finally, we got a guy who's doing what we want to do, which is why if we ever got the guy who's honest, we're going to have to rip him apart because he's not like us. Santos is like us.
Yeah.
That's really what you have. They heap to themselves teachers that are like themselves because they have itchy. These guys say what we want to say. I'm human. I've made mistakes like everybody else. Maybe I lied. Wow, that sounds so much like me. I don't want anything above me, nothing to aspire to. I want somebody right where I am, in the same soup where I am. How can a nation rise in that way? So in some ways, George Washington becomes corny. I never told a lie. Get out of here. That's old. I mean, that's old fashioned. At a time that would have been great. Now we're looking for the liar. I want me a guy who tells a lie every now and then. You never drank? I need me a guy who puts a couple back every now and then. That's the kind of guy I want to have a beer with. Yeah. So look where our country is. We don't want that other guy. And that nation like that is ripe for the picking.
We want fighters. We want people who are going to fight for us and going to go to battle and scrap and do all these other things. And sometimes that means you got to tell a lie and you got to whatever it takes. It does come down to the ends justifying the means. As long as you get to point B, I don't care what you did between
right
and point B. I mean, we gotta jury rig the rules to make it so this guy doesn't get in, so we can get our guy in. No problem. We're just playing by the rules.
Listen, we've been spending 60 years trying to stop people from getting nuclear weapons, right? You can't have them. You can't. Well, yeah, we're the only country that ever used a nuclear weapon, right? I mean, and we justified it. There's a reason for it. Now, when the other countries say it, there's no reason for it. I can't imagine ever using it, and we forgot. So our hypocrisy, man, is going to come back to eat us. It's going to come back to bite us. No doubt about it.
Well, even before you get to the nuclear weapons, we just weapons of mass destruction. You can't have them. Like we have them, and we can give them to other people, but you can't have them.
You can't, right?
Right. You not for you. It's for us, but not because we're responsible, and we won't use them inappropriately. And to your point, we're still the only country where we dropped 2 bombs.
Yes.
And on Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they're still feeling the effects today.
To this day.
Of those things today. And I've heard people justify it by saying, well, because of that, no one's ever used it again. Tell that to the people who generations of the birth defects and other illnesses have resulted that. Like, that's the price. Like that's the price they had to pay. So
Right.
no one ever uses it again. I mean, I think that's silly. But I think that we see ourselves in this country on a higher moral plane. So again, we just listen, and we had a reason for it. I mean, we had to make sure that they were totally subdued, like that. like I mean, it was not so much that it was overkill. It was sort of like a flexing our muscle. Like we're gonna let you know this is who we are.
Right.
This is what we've got. And if you mess with us, this is what you're gonna get. And so that sort of mindset that we're the moral arbiter of what weapons can be used and this, and we're complaining about chemical weapons and this weapons. Those things pale in comparison to nuclear weapons. And I mean, it's not
Absolutely.
and we have stockpiles and stockpiles and stockpiles of them. And I don't know why, because if it ever came down to nuclear war, you only need a couple, and not
Right.
you don't need 100.
Mutually assured destruction.
Yeah, you just need a couple, and we're good. But all that really did was start a world arms race that's still going on today. So China's building
Right.
up their arsenal, and other people building up their arsenal, and so you have this same dynamic, but it was perpetuated by us. Yeah, we sort of started that
Yep.
whole thing when the rest of the world was down militarily. We took that opportunity to say, to be on top, and then make sure we're on top, and to keep our foot on people's
Right.
necks when we wanted to. And then, I mean, not to go on all in tangent, I think then when you get back to like real warfare, Vietnam and other places, you're like, yeah, warfare is really messy. It's not that easy to just wipe people off the map. It's not
That's
that
right.
easy to take land and take territory. War is very unpredictable, right? And that we're seeing in Russia and Ukraine, it's very unpredictable. Everyone was saying Ukraine was going to get wiped out, and they may last 2 weeks. And here we're a year later, they're nowhere near being wiped out.
That's right.
So war is very unpredictable when you start, doing these things. It's unpredictable, and it's arrogant to think that we know this is what's going to happen. If they go, these things are going to happen for sure. These things are not going to happen. It's arrogant, but again, we sort of have we think we know, and so it's unfortunate, but that is where we are. And to your earlier point, unless the people, unless the people in New York rise up and say we want this guy gone, he's not going anywhere.
That's right.
Congress has no way to get rid of him. No way. I mean, think about that. Could you imagine having a job where once you're in the job, that they say, no matter what he does, we can't get rid of him. We can't get rid of him. No matter what
Absolutely.
we can't fire him. Like the only place that can happen is in government.
Right.
Is in leadership. Is that not the craziest thing? And is that not the craziest thing you've heard? I mean, that's outrageous, but that's what we stand for. That's what we will take. That's what we will say. Well, it's okay.
What's what we want?
Hmm.
It's what we want. There are people who are going to listen and for the right sounds, just like the Grinch Who Stole Christmas. He's sitting, or was that where he goes down to Whoville and he's like sitting on right. Is that when he steals all the toys and then he sits up there and he's listening because he's expecting there's going to be some upheaval, right? And he hears nothing. we are right. We're like that where we're looking and saying, okay, now I know that they're going to trip over that. Like I know there's going to be upheaval, and we're just listening. It's like crickets. There's nothing. There's nothing. You know why? Because the people were comfortable with what the Whoville people when he stole all the toys. It wasn't about that for them, right? It was about something else. He thought it was about that. So when we're listening, we're looking and saying it's about integrity, right? And they're looking and saying we're not tripping because it was never about that. We never cared about honesty in the first place. I don't know what you guys are talking about. That's what we are really like that Grinch who's saying, yeah, now surely that'll get a rise out of them. And it's like nothing.
No rise
whatsoever. They're going about their business. But you know what? It's like in last days, right? Remember Jesus when he talks about this idea of looking over the hill and he says, I'm looking at the people and they're going around like marrying and giving into marriage.
Yeah.
Like regular. They can't see the catastrophe that's going on. We are really in that same place where this is not that big of a deal. You and I are talking about it. Don Lemon and the rest of the crew were talking about it, right? There were some people on Fox News, but other than that, it's kind of blown over as if, we'll see.
Right.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's like there's a sense of resignation, right? Like, whatever, it's out of our hands, so we'll see, wait and see how it plays out. I mean, again, this is the only occupation in which this would play out, right? Every other occupation would have some mechanism for if there's an integrity issue, they can remove you.
Right.
And this is
Right.
our government is the one where you say we never put a mechanism in place to get people
Right.
who obtain the job. We never thought of that. And again, it's because if they wanted that, it would be in place. They don't
Sure.
want it, and we haven't demanded it, so they're not going to get it.
Well, that's it. I think that the idea is that we don't want to override the choice of the people.
Mm.
And so this one now is, if the people want to elect a shyster, they technically should be able to. We don't expect that they will. We'll put it out in front of them.
Mhm.
But if they want to have a lech, right? If they want to have a drunkard, the people have a right to choose a drunkard, right? So I think that's one of the reasons why they probably didn't put the mechanism in, because
Right.
they were assuming we're going to trust the people.
Yeah. And we see where that's gotten.
We see where that's gotten. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
this is
good.
always going to be this way because it's where the people's heads are, not just the leadership. This isn't those few people in Congress. This is the whole of New York. This is the whole of the nation that we have to really look at. And this is where we see not one or two people, not a couple popes, not a couple Pharisees. This is really the whole of the people who do just like, give us Barabbas. It was the nation, not the Pharisees. It was the whole nation that made the choice and said, listen, let the curse be on us and our children's head. The whole nation chose Barabbas. That's where the nation is choosing now and saying, wait a minute, there's an honest guy over here, and then there's Barabbas. We know what Barabbas did. We know who he is. You're not pulling his skirt up because by telling us that his mother really wasn't Jewish. Give us Barabbas. That's the craziness.
Yeah.
So our job is to do this. We definitely wanted to illuminate it, but we also want to illuminate for some people. You're acting like a Barabbas. You're acting like the congregation here that made the wrong choice.
Yeah, well, that's well put. That is well put. And we're gonna have to leave it there because we're out of time. But man, great conversation. Certainly enjoyed it talking to you.
I enjoyed it as well.
Going back and forth was good. And again, looking forward to this Saturday at 7 p.m. Your debut. So looking forward to that. Excited about that. And so we'll thank you for everyone who tuned in and watched. If you watch on the replay, thank you as well for watching on the replay.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Good night and God
Look forward to it.
Yep.
Take care.